thank you again for coming. This is a very exciting time. We're finally starting to launch our programs that we've been working on for the last 3.5 years as part of this CRA revitalization effort. We went in another direction with this redevelopment plan. As you can see, we have 3 other redevelopment areas in the city of St. Petersburg, all of them downtown. They have been tax increment financing districts at least since 1982. You have in-town West, and Bay Royal Harbor. All of those tax increment financing districts would fund public improvement projects such as garages, streetscaping, Tropicana Field, for instance, park development. We went in another direction with this redevelopment plan. We've spent a lot of money on public improvements in South St. Petersburg and both Childs Park and Midtown, and we wanted to provide money to the private sector to incentivize the reinvestment in the community. So we developed a series of programs, and these are just our first batch, and I'm going to go over them briefly and then start entertaining your questions. This presentation has been included in your folder, and will be essentially like a frequently asked question, quick reference guide that you can find the answers to if you don't want to dig through the applications. You've also been given all 5 tax increment financing applications for your review. As I mentioned, we developed programs that differ from previous efforts. There are 10 tax increment financing programs that are currently adopted by City Council. They did this on February 4th. 5 of them are direct grants to property owners and businesses. They include affordable multifamily housing rebate, a multifamily residential property improvement program, a commercial site improvement program, commercial building interior and tenant improvement program, as well as a commercial revitalization program. Those are the 5 that we're going to discuss in depth tonight. We also adopted 5 other programs. One is a Paint Your Heart Out program, which kind of supplements the funding effort that is provided to our neighborhood team. And the N team goes out and works with low-income and elderly residents. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you what he's referring to, everybody, is it's in your package, and I believe in the left-hand side or right-hand pocket. And here's slide this. Use the mic.
This is what you should be referencing. Hopefully all of you have it.
Okay, I'm on the 2nd page right now.
I don't mean to shout out of order, but if you could be more specific as to what you're doing and saying from what page.
Okay.
Everybody behind us will understand what's going on.
All right. We are on the 2nd page, top slide. The Paint Your Heart Out program is essentially supplementing our existing resources for the neighborhood team, and it helps low-income families and elderly households to repair their homes when they are absent of capital. We've also adopted a redevelopment loan program that has not been put in place yet, but will be once we secure some banking partners that will be able to work with businesses to provide working capital, real estate loans within the South St. Petersburg area. We're developing a workforce readiness and development program with our workforce partners such as CareerSource, PTech, etc. We also have a CRA grant match and a property acquisition and preparation program. This monies will be used infrequently from the TIF to pay for those programs. The next slide, 2nd one down. Some administrative highlights. The city begins accepting complete applications with sound financial background on May 31st, 2016. That's a Tuesday right after Memorial Day. It's a dollar-for-dollar match for approved costs up to a program maximum, and they differ depending on the type of building you have and where you're located. But I'll be getting into those individually shortly. The project must be approved prior to undertaking construction. That's very important. So if you're thinking about starting work in the next couple of months, please give me a call and see if your project may be jeopardized for funding by an early start inadvertently. We are requiring all applicants, all approved applicants, to sign a grant agreement that describes the responsibilities. Projects must adhere to time frames. We will be tying up money by reaching a grant agreement with any applicant. So we want to make sure that there's due diligence and constant movement towards progress. Otherwise, we need to redeploy that money for other projects that may be more long. Grant agreement, we envision, can be used as a source of equity for bank loan. In the event that your project's still a little short, you could show the grant agreement as kind of a promissory note to show to the banking institutions that you have a little bit additional equity bring to the table if the project meets the standards of the city. As I mentioned, grant funding is only awarded after completion of the project, and the project must be approved by the building department and issued a CO when complete to receive funds. Something that you'll need to bear in mind, that grant funds are classified as income. So that'll have some impact on your income taxes, either as an individual or as a corporate entity. So please consult your tax advisor on those impacts. And we also specify the source of funding, whether city and or county tax increment dollars. It's important to note that the city's use of its funds is fairly widely liberal. We provide money in all programs, whereas county monies are a little more restrictive, so we have to handle our accounting in certain ways. County will fund commercial site improvement grants, and they will also fund affordable housing projects. So we will need to know from you whether your projects will be able to utilize city and county monies or city monies. This would be third page. There are potentially disqualifying events. City Council asked us to include this in to make sure that we're dealing with financially responsible applicants. If you have code enforcement liens over $2,500, special assessment liens over $500, you could potentially be ineligible for this program. Pending judgments or foreclosures, felony convictions for financial mismanagement. That's an important distinction. We're only concerned with the financial portion of misdeeds and no others. Mortgage payments that are 3 months in arrears, unpaid property taxes, or unpaid property insurance. So if you're on the bubble with any of these issues and you could potentially rectify that before you apply, I urge you to go ahead. We will require you to submit documentation that you're in good standing on all these points. Some of our required documentation, we want a completed and signed application. Those are included in your packet. If you need to request a letter of extension of a grant agreement to secure additional financing, we will allow you to do that up for 90 days as you go out and shop around for additional financing. We will need detailed cost estimates of the work by project component to understand exactly what we're going to be funding once the project's completed. Again, the confirmation that you're in good standing on your mortgage, property insurance, and property tax payments. We'll need a copy of your business license if appropriate. If you are a tenant and you want to do work and you don't own the property, we'll need consent of the property owner to go forward with your application. We'll want also a legal description, survey of site, photographs of existing conditions, because we want to make sure that the work you're proposing has not already been done, and we are going to go out and verify the condition of the site before and after the project's been approved. It needs to be consistent with the city zoning regulations, so that'll be one of our first screening mechanisms to make sure that the use that you're proposing is actually allowed by code. We want a written description of project improvements and drawings of those improvements as well to document the work that we'll be paying for. Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Two questions. One is related to the detailed cost estimates of work by project component. So that's not me as a property owner writing down, well, I guess it's going to cost $10,000.
Right.
And that also relates to the second question, which is a written description of project, and, I'm sorry, the drawings of improvements.
Right.
You want those drawings done by a licensed?
We want the drawings done by a licensed contractor. It can be done with an architect as well, but the city is going to require you to have a licensed contractor to do the work. We will want those estimates from that licensed contractor, who will be providing that to you anyways. To get into some of our additional programs, we have an affordable multifamily housing rebate, which is an annual rebate on the increase in ad valorem taxes in the first year of a development project. It can be extended for up to 15 years, potentially up to $50,000 a year for 15 years. And you would be rebated all of the taxing authority obligations for that increase, which is roughly 22.8 mils. Yes, ma'am.
How many units is multifamily?
Multifamily is, for this program, is a minimum of 10.
So everywhere we see multifamily is 10 or more units?
In our other program, it's a minimum of 3, but we wanted, for this program, which is essentially new construction or a substantial renovation, a minimum of 10. Affordable is defined as 80% of area median income, and that's based on the State Housing Initiative Partnership. And that standard changes annually. We'll be using whatever the prevailing rate is. It comes out every March or April. We will annually verify the income of residents and the lease that they are paying over the life of the rebate, and to ensure that the affordability is maintained. And we can use both city and county TIFs. This provides you an example of the income levels and the rent levels based on size of household and size of bedrooms under the current State Housing Initiative Partnership. We are now on page 5, Multifamily Residential Property Improvement Grant. We've had very good success with our rebates for residential rehab over the past 2 years. However, it's not so favorable with multifamily dwellings because only one unit can be funded through the RRR program. So we decided to supplement this by allowing up to 9 units to be renovated under the Residential Property Improvement Grant Program. You need a minimum investment of $10,000 per unit, and the reimbursement is the lesser of $20,000 or 20% of total costs, or $10,000 per unit.
Rick,
Yes, ma'am.
question, please. On the rebate for residential rehab, how many actual residents of the CRA have actually benefited from that program?
I can't answer that. I know that there have been a lot of investors who have taken advantage of it, but
We can get that answer from Mike Doug and get it to you.
There have been about 100 properties that have been rehabbed.
Not investors, but by residents of the CRA.
Well, whoever lives in the renovated building benefits.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is when this program was originally presented, Councilman Nurse, you and I had this discussion that my concern was, yes, that if you had investors that could afford to put up that match, but individuals like me that live in the CRA that work every day, I can't afford to put up $10,000 and then have a match. So that's why I'm asking specifically about those individuals that are residents, homeowners, not the investors that's coming in and then they leave once they rent their property.
well, this program obviously would be for tenant properties. As you know, there's a real affordability issue in South St. Petersburg as well as St. Petersburg at large. We have a lot of older units, so maintaining them and keeping them in service is one way we can try to address the affordability issue. As you know, probably 80% of all of our residential units are older than 1970 construction, so close to 3 generations worth of major overhauls to HVAC, you name it, need to have occurred to at least keep the property in sound condition. So,
And it's important to point out that this is not single-family residences.
right.
This is multi-family residences, and someone that and it's for 10 or more units. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So someone that has
Actually-
property renting to 10 or more people, hopefully they are generating income enough to be able to repair it with the incentive that they are going to get reimbursed.
Well, we define, sorry, I misspoke there. At least 3 dwelling units would need to be part of the project in order to qualify.
It's important to point out, this is not single-family residences.
Exactly.
It's multifamily.
Yeah, but Rick, can you draw a distinction between the multifamily and also the Paint Your Heart Out program? With the end team, that's really for homeowners, is that correct?
That's correct. And that program is going to be funded as we go through each budget cycle. If there's any leftover funding available, we will be diverting it into the end team. It's not going to be a budget line item every year. It's what we have available. We don't have a lot of TIF money and won't have any for a few years. So we want to try to target use money in the most impactful ways.
Rick, a clarification, was the original rebate for residential?
So everybody can hear your question.
Just, was the original rebate for residential rehab program, was that not, weren't individual households eligible for that program?
Certainly.
Okay, and now it's switched in this plan to multifamily.
We still have the rebates for residential rehab. This supplements.
This is just another,
Doesn't replace it.
thank you.
Certainly.
Can you just do a real quick description of the residential single-family program?
Essentially, it has the same requirements. A minimum of $10,000 invested per unit. The application specifies the types of work that we want to see that extends the life of a structure. It could be foundation, roof, windows, HVAC, mechanicals, electrical, all the important stuff that needs to be kept up to date in order to sustain a structure. You're welcome. Where am I? Okay. The county tax increment monies can also be used for affordable housing or affordable projects, which I've already described how it's defined. Now let's get into the business development side. The Commercial Site Improvement Grant, which utilizes city and county TIF, is eligible for projects such as building facade work, landscaping, lighting, signage, loading and service areas, and other visible exterior features. One of the hallmarks of our redevelopment plan is to spruce up the commercial corridors, and there's major ones that are very important. They're the face of the neighborhoods, and they provide the gateways to the CRA. So this project or program is designed to facilitate a aesthetic upgrade to commercial properties. Yes, sir.
Is the parking lots in the commercial property included in this program?
I didn't hear that, sir.
The parking lot on the commercial property.
Right.
Are they included in this program?
Yes, sir, it is. That would include landscaping up to code, so any work that you... asphalt, wheel stops, landscaping to improve the appearance of parking facilities.
Rick, can I suggest when we get questions from the audience to just maybe let's try to restate the question so everyone can hear the question?
Gotcha.
Because they hear your response, but I'm not sure everyone hears the question.
The question was, does this include parking areas and asphalt? And it does. There will be requirements that we maintain adhere to code requirements for new parking areas in order to qualify for the grant. Some ineligible work, permitting fees, reducing or enclosing storefront windows. We want to maintain the traditional Main Street look, commercial look of the corridors. Security systems, we're talking about bars here, HVAC, mechanical, and other systems. It's a matching grant of up to $20,000. It's up to $40,000 matching grant if you're a historic property. Here are the major corridors. They are kind of the breadbasket for redevelopment in the city and job creation. We are in the CRA, and they're important to revitalize. And you can see includes Central Avenue, and the First Avenues north and south, includes 34th Street, 5th Avenue, South, 22nd Street, 18th Avenue South, 49th Street, and Dr. Martin Luther King. We also provide a commercial building interior tenant improvement grant, which is designed to keep some of our older commercial building stock up to code and freely available for renting and leasing. Funds interior upgrades focused on remedying degraded structure and extending its economic life. Eligible costs include wall configurations, plumbing, HVAC, security systems. Roofing is also included because it's important for interior, to maintain the interior. And eligible costs, painting only, just the interior. We want to see other work done that extends the life of the space. Permit fees and new buildings. This is also a matching grant up to $20,000. $40,000 again for a historic landmark with a $1,000 project minimum. Yes, sir.
Windows considered interior or exterior?
They can be both, depending on the work you do.
Okay. Thank you.
Are windows considered interior or exterior? And they can be both.
What does the city consider the historic landmarks? We're not finding a list of those landmarks.
Okay, they are formally designated and approved by City Council. They're called local historic landmarks. If you shoot me an email, I will send you the list of properties throughout the city that are designated. And that's that. I don't have them off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How did Central get onto the south side? Why is the border always been Central?
Pardon me?
Why is the border Central Avenue if it's the south side?
Because
How does Central Avenue get included in this whole side?
Yeah, for this mic.
No, we don't. The boundaries for the CRA were based on the Midtown Strategic Planning Initiative and the Childs Park Strategic Planning Initiative, which were boundaries that were identified probably a decade or more ago. We just maintain those boundaries in order for consistency, and this area has long been a focus of city revitalization efforts, so that's why it's been included. Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, I noticed that on this part for the tenant, that there's a $1,000 minimum.
Right.
Previously, there was no minimum.
That's correct.
So why is it that for the tenant, who doesn't have a long-term stake in the property, for the other side of the business owner, is it zero minimum?
Well, we can look into that.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, why is there a $1,000 minimum for commercial interior grant and not a minimum for the commercial site improvement grant, which would be the exterior? And my point was that we could look into it based on the project that was provided to us.
Thank you.
Certainly. Yes, Maria.
Under the question, under the mic, she's supposed to. I'm sorry. Under the requirements were already given to major corridors in CRA.
Right.
Is there going to be a rubric that's going to score you higher if that's a preference, or how will that work when you say you're going to give preference to a major corridor?
Right. We will, applications that come in at the same time, we will balance ones that are within these major corridors and those that are not. We will give preference to those that are not, or that are, excuse me.
So if I'm not on one of the major corridors,
Right.
you're going to push that application aside.
We will put it aside, but you may be eligible for funding if there's no additional projects coming in or applications coming in.
Is that requirement up for, can that be a reconsideration in the requirements for this money? Because what I'm concerned about is that all of the money will be gone to the businesses on the corridor, and then by the time the businesses that may not be on 18th, 22nd, 9th, or one of the other business corridors,
Right.
they don't have a shot at it. So I would think this would be a criteria. I would hope the CAC would consider looking at. I'm not sure if they can make that adjustment in the process, but I think that's going to eliminate a lot of businesses that would be eligible otherwise.
That's a valid point, and to be fair, this is the inaugural launch of the program, and there will need to be some evaluation of the effectiveness of our current criteria, and we're going to be evaluating it annually. One of the reasons we did a wide broadcast that apparently was pretty effective is to ferret out the demand, to see what projects were about ready to go, shovel ready, or people could at least get their plans together in a reasonable period of time. So I think it's a learning curve, and we'll adjust to try to be more effective.
Yeah, I would also make this observation to your question, Maria. For example, if there's a business that is not in the corridor but has an application that is going to have a substantial improvement in the creation of jobs, I can guarantee you that this committee here is going to give it very strong consideration.
I don't know if you, Rick, if you have mentioned dollars, how much is available now? I mean, I don't want people to walk out here and think that there's multi-millions out here that are available.
I'm almost to that point. But yeah, I'm trying to be encouraging, but not to manage expectations.
I live in this community, and I know that we need to mention that it's less than $500,000 that's available right now, that over the course of the 30 years of this plan, it can be up to multiples of millions of dollars as the property improvements start to generate more tax revenue. I think it's really important that we be clear. At least I'm about being clear, because people see I'm on this committee now, and I don't want anybody thinking that there's all these millions of dollars that are available right now, and that they're all going to go to these main corridors, because it's not that much money available right now. It's less than $500,000. So let's be clear. But as time goes on, and as people are improving their properties, whether it's a residence or if it's a commercial building, and as new jobs are generated, there will be additional tax revenue generated. That's being fed back into the pot to make more money available to the community.
Oh, so that's our tax, and then it's going back to us.
They're not quite like that, but it's somewhat like that. So let's be clear. I think it's important.
I'm getting to the...
Rick, before you do that, I want to add an observation here, because I think the observation that Ms. Jones made is very, very accurate. But the other point that I want to add to that is that we don't expect over the life of this plan that TIF dollars be the only dollars available to improve this community.
Right.
Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. We intend for the city and for this county and for the state and for the federal sources, whatever they are, to be added, particularly in the areas where we can use TIF dollars as matching dollars from other sources to add to what we're trying to do to leverage. So staff and all of us are going to be constantly looking for additional funds to augment whatever is coming out of the trust fund.
Thank you. The next program we have is a commercial revitalization program. It's a citywide program, but a portion of it applies to our CRA area. There's approximately $290,000 available this year for it. Applicants are eligible for different funding levels after a minimum capital expenditure of $100,000. Within the CRA, you get up to $50,000 match for renovating, expanding, or adding commercial square footage, and for up to $100,000 match, which would mean that you would put in 100 and the city would put in 100, provided the mayor approves it. You would be required to have job creation and minimum $500,000 capital investment to take advantage of the program. It's administered through our city development administration. I'll be the kind of intake for it to avoid confusion, but it'll be evaluated by city development administration. Project can be for new construction or rehabilitation of a commercial structure, including mixed use, and it's city TIF only. Now we get to the budget part of it that Teresa was discussing. There is approximately $475,000 available in total funding this year. I would like to point out, though, that if property values increase at their current rate, and they increased at 8% over last year, we would be close to getting $1 million annually into the trust fund in 2 years. So it could ramp up pretty quickly, God willing, and the creek don't rise, or another real estate recession. But still, I think if we could have a little patience, we can have a pretty robust funding program within a 5-year period that can satisfy a lot of the needs of the private businesses in South St. Petersburg. City Council approved a budget that deployed 60% of the TIF to business and workforce development, $200,000 for commercial exterior and interior grants, $50,000 for the commercial revitalization program that I just mentioned, and $50,000 for the workforce development program I described earlier. A minimum of $50,000. In the housing and neighborhood section, approximately $190,000 for both multifamily programs. And it should be noted that if we were undersubscribed in one area, such as housing and neighborhood programs, oversubscribed in another, City Council can vote to reallocate the budget to meet the demand. Yes, sir.
I got a question. In your housing neighborhood revitalization, it states that this is to supplement rebates for residential rehab programs of the multifamily priority. But with the home, it's rehab, but with this commercial, you're saying it could be new construction. Can some of these funds be used for new construction for single family if it's going to be utilized for low-income families?
We do have a program in our plan designed to provide affordable single-family construction. We have not deployed it yet. We wanted to sort of scale up the programs we have in accordance with the amount of money we have, if that makes any sense.
There is money in a
Yeah.
different pot.
Pardon me?
There is money in a different pot.
Would you?
There is money for new construction, in the CRA, for construction of new houses, it's $10,000. It would come out of the traditional housing funds, not out of this stuff.
Okay, would you have to go through the same application process that with paying the money, or is it like a residential rehab? You do it through the city?
It's actually done through the housing department, because that's where the money is from.
Okay.
Okay.
Along those lines, I think it's important to mention that these TIF programs are in addition to the other programs that the city has. And what Councilmember Nurse mentioned is that they already have a program that does provide for new construction of homes. That's through the housing department. So these TIF programs that we're rolling out now are in addition to the other programs the city has already had. So you may find opportunities to get your projects done outside of the TIF funding. All right?
Let me make it, well, I need to clear one thing. What the house I'm speaking of is for rental property, not home ownership. It's the same procedure as it.
They have commercial,
I don't believe it matters whether it's for ownership or for rental.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, just asking a question, what about some of these properties that are vacant and you can acquire them? Can you get grants to create jobs for some of these single parents and children that will create jobs for them? Would that be instituted in this particular plan that you're doing now?
The redevelopment plan as a whole supports that activity, and if I can use a real-life example, the St. Petersburg Commerce Park, right across the street from Sylvia's, the Manhattan Casino, the city purchased land using various sources of federal funding in order to attract employment uses. Part of our, we are negotiating with a couple of businesses right now, and part of our conveyance of the land to is getting a commitment from them to provide jobs for residents of the South St. Petersburg CRA and low-income residents in particular. Yes, ma'am.
I see that there's lots of, well, not lots, because 475,000 is not that much, but I see that there's a lot of exterior and interior development of the community, but there's no mention of the development of the children and of educational programs that would push these children into, and these teenagers into this workforce and kind of straighten up that look.
Yes. That's a good point, and we do have in the redevelopment plan basically a cradle to career workforce development approach. It includes early childhood education. It includes work readiness programs for teens. It includes an urban apprenticeship program for young adults designed to try to provide support at really critical points in their lives as they try to get workforce skills.
And who's actually running those types of programs?
These programs that the city run.
I say that I teach, and I've been teaching for over 20 years, and yeah, I see the dire need.
Yes.
For special type of programming for our children.
There are multifaceted issues with the CRA, and we realize we're going to have to work with our partners at the school board, with our workforce development boards, with our faith-based communities who provide the early childhood education. And there is capability of funding future programs for early childhood education with our tax increment dollars. As we start to ramp up the redevelopment trust fund.
Can be done, like, is there something that can be done almost immediately if there's experienced people with all the information that they know will make the change in a lot of the lives of those children and teenagers who are just constantly being recycled into the system and nothing's really happening?
Well, we've allocated at least $50,000 for the workforce readiness childhood workforce development side. We have not yet finished developing the program, but we're willing to work with partners. Yes, ma'am.
Is it necessary to have a professional painter or a wooden structure that could be deemed a historic landmark?
Is it necessary to have a professional painter to paint a historic structure? A wooden structure. It isn't necessary to have a professional painter to do that. It is necessary to have a certified contractor to do other work that requires a building permit. Painting doesn't require a building permit.
But it is necessary for a professional painter.
It is not.
Oh, good.
And you could use N-Team to paint your heart out on it.
Correct. If you want to get with me afterwards, I can connect you with the N-Team if you need some assistance with your structure.
And the N-Team stands for?
Neighborhood Team. Yes, ma'am.
First, I want to thank you all for the presentation. Very detailed. I do have two questions, and they're kind of continuous questions. I noticed a lot of sort of the funding seems to be tailored towards folks who already have clear access to capital, and even in talking about matching funds,
Right.
that necessitates being able to get approval for that capital in communities that allow equity investment. And so, what are the clearer pathways for folks who might be new entrepreneurs to really get access to capital that they've been struggling to get at this point? My second question, and you touched on it a little bit in the last one, but I see a lot about the different funding streams for the commercial and neighborhood redevelopment, and almost nothing in this packet about the workforce development.
Right.
If you can outline more tangibly, what does it mean when we say we're going to be investing that $50,000 at minimum into workforce development?
It means initially we're going to be working closely with the ultimate user of the St. Pete Commerce Park site to prepare residents of the CRA for jobs that are going to be available on that site. That's where the initial funding will be going to. We're also going to be reaching out to anchor institutions to partner with them to develop workforce programs to support, or work readiness programs to support community residents. Yes, Maria?
First question.
First question. Remind me again.
How are we going to find pathways for access to capital for folks who don't have any real equity to back it up?
Right.
So, for most of us, getting a loan from a bank, even get a matching fund, is going to be a very difficult thing without the city intervening.
Absolutely. City Development Administration has been reaching out to at least a dozen different banking partners in the city to put together a loan pool that would help to bridge capital needs, not only in the CRA, but in the city at large. We're still in the infancy of developing that program, but the city's making a concerted effort because we recognize lack of capital is maybe the biggest issue for our community here.
And not just banks, we're looking at credit unions and other, CDFI type funding opportunities, community development financial institutions.
Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. I thought I heard you say that the 50,000 workforce development has been targeted toward the St. Pete Commerce Project?
Portions of it has. We realize that is the largest single parcel we have for bringing in new construction, new job creation. There's estimated 70 jobs that may come onto the site, and we're trying to ensure that the workforce skills for the residents of the CRA are able to qualify for the jobs there.
Let me tell you where I'm concerned, and I'm just a further follow-up question. When the RFP for the St. Pete Commerce Park was let, there was no CRA. It wasn't until after the CAC was formed and the CR plan was approved that the CAC learned about the St. Pete Commerce Project.
That's
it was
right.
a done deal. My question is, why would then 50,000 with such a limited amount of money be used for a project where individuals are already getting a healthy bit of land? They, a part of their RFP, if I can remember correctly, was for them to develop jobs. Why are we then giving them money to develop jobs when we're already giving them the one piece of property that we have, the largest piece of public property that we have in the CRA?
Well, we want to make sure that there's a pipeline to these jobs for the residents of the city or the CRA, and to make sure that those the residents have the skills to fill those jobs.
And can I follow up on that? We clearly heard, as the CRA, as the CAT, we were concerned that that RFP required at least 64 jobs be created. That was a requirement from HUD, because HUD was the ones that gave the funding to buy the land, to assemble the land for the Commerce Market period. We recognize as CAC members that we want individuals that live within the CRA to be able to have work, to have living wage jobs, and that they have agreed to provide those jobs. However, we also recognize the lack of skill levels of individuals who may be residents of the CRA area. So we feel it's important that those that may have the desire to work in the Commerce Park have the ability to work there. And part of giving them the ability is to train them. We all know who has been selected for that, who the developer is. Those jobs that are going to be created there are high-skilled jobs. And we've heard from the community, well, our people don't necessarily have those skills. And so this is our way of trying to address that, is to train them to have those skills.
One of the things I would ask the CAC to consider, there is an industry that already exists in the CRA of early childhood education providers and home care providers that have made a tremendous investment in creating jobs and educating children in South St. Why would we take a limited amount of money and put it into something that may or may not create jobs, that may already compete with workforce development dollars that already come into the community? Why would we be giving a limited amount of money that on a hope and a dream of what might happen in the St. Petersburg College project when we have clearly an industry of early childhood educators, providers, and home providers and centers that are already existing businesses. They already are looking to expand because of the need to improve their services. And I would ask that the CAC not be locked into those few dollars going to something that may or may not materialize and may or may not benefit or train a couple of people when we already have an industry that could use those few dollars.
Maria, I would respond to you about the current jobs that are in the community for child care. I would suggest that you also speak with those in our community who are out there fighting for child care workers to be paid a minimum of $15 an hour. So those are not necessarily high-wage jobs. So
If I could add to that, City Council is having this conversation right now about how can we increase the skills of child care providers and increase the wages. And that is separate. That's separate money, but that conversation is ongoing right now. And if I could just add one more thing, I do want to remind people that the peer project, which is a $50 million project, the police headquarters, which is a $70 million project, and the sewer treatment plant, which is about a $50 million project, all of those will require that 10% of the people hired are as defined as hard to hire, which would typically mean they have a record, and 10% would have to be in apprenticeship programs. So that's, it's close to $200 billion of construction projects that will have 20% of those jobs will be largely coming from the community, and I might say over the vigorous objections of the construction industry.
Okay, thank you. Let me speak a little bit more about how we marketed the TIF programs. Over the last couple of weeks, we've sent out approximately 1,700 emails to business owners and CRA and urban affairs stakeholders. We've mailed out approximately 2,800 pieces of mail to property owners within certain targeted areas of the CRA. These would include owners of commercially zoned property, owners of property zoned multifamily, and owners of multifamily properties and single-family zoning districts to try to cast as wide a net as we could to get to folks who might be interested in this. In addition to our open house tonight, we're going to be offering a weekly technical assistance desk in South St. Petersburg. I'll get to that a little later. We're also going to be engaging social broadcasts and print media. Our technical assistance information excuse me. Every other week I'm going to be at Enoch Davis beginning on April 13th, Wednesdays from 1 to 5 through May 25th. And on alternate Wednesdays I'll be at Child Spark Y. That would start tomorrow. So if you have particular need to come in and talk to me, I'm welcome to sit down and listen to your project. We can walk through the application, walk through what's needed, talk about the various issues that might confront you or not, and try to get you in position to apply if you're interested on the May 31st deadline. You see my number here. I do urge you, if you wanted to drop by the technical assistance desk to schedule an appointment with me. I've already got 3 for tomorrow, so I'd like to be able to fit you in at your convenience. And you can also meet with me at on my floor in the Municipal Services Center. Again, I prefer that you set up an appointment because I'm in and out, and I don't want to frustrate you by not being at my desk when you may arrive. So I'll be happy to work with you as need be. And you can access a lot of the information on this website here. The shorthand one is the Southside CRA. The other long-handed one is more of an internal web page. But that concludes my presentation. Thank you for coming.